Hello, I'm Dr. Arlen Ford, the chairman and founder of Activator Methods International, and welcome to our podcast, Activate Your Practice. And today we have a real star in my book. It's Dr. Irum Tahir, and she has one of the nicest, biggest practices. And I first learned about her in a TED Talk some 7 years ago, and I was impressed by her. And so I wanted to get her on the podcast to find out how she became so successful. And tell me where your location is.
Yeah, so my practice is in upstate New York, but I actually live in the Washington, D.C. area. So I have my practice set up where I can actually run it from anywhere, which I'm very grateful for. So we got systems, which we'll probably go into it a little bit. But I'm in upstate New York, and then I'm now in the Washington, D.C. area to have another location there.
How do you run things with systems? That intrigues me.
Yeah. So, I think most chiropractors, most entrepreneurs, they're enmeshed in the practice, right? So they're like in there, even if you think of like a baker, they're in there baking the bread. And that is part of why we got into it, is chiropractic and working with our patients. But it's really, I think, that true success and freedom comes from when you're sitting more on top of the business. And you can still, of course, be doing the daily adjustments, but those systems that you do put into place and making sure that everyone's doing things the same way, regardless of who is there, is, I think, what's key.
Well, I know you have a kind of an unusual practice. It I guess, specializes. And so I want to know about that.
Yeah. So my practice, we do see the general population, but we see a ton of pregnant women and babies and wellness type of families, too. So it's a wellness-based practice. We do, work with a lot of OBGYNs and midwives and doulas in the area. So we've really built a name for ourselves, and I created a whole system of working with OBGYNs and medical doctors to be able to get them to understand what it is we do with chiropractic care. And I'm really, that's like my passion. My passion is really the pregnant women in practice. So when I'm working with our moms or even postpartum, those are the moms that need the most help, because oftentimes they're told by the medical world, there's nothing that can be done for you. You just have to wait it out. You just have to live with it. It doesn't need to be that way.
But that's where I think you have majored, is in this area. And how did you get started at it?
I think it started with having real empathy for pregnant moms, because I feel like they go through so much. They're carrying life within them, and that life is so important and it's so crucial, and what happens to the mom does affect that life. And so I started thinking about it, is that if we can impact the pregnant mom through chiropractic care, it will change the trajectory of that person's life, when they're born into this world, how they're born into this world. And so it can either be a very difficult, laborious, challenging labor and delivery, or it can be easy and smooth and comfortable. And, that really comes into play with working with the pregnant mom. So that's really one of my biggest passions, is working with pregnant moms, along with, so many other things. But
you coached, chiropractors for years.
Yeah.
What's the number one main issue that you see most often in chiropractic practices, and how can it be corrected?
Yeah, so I've been coaching chiropractors for the last 12 years, and while working within my own practice. So I think one of the things that really sets me apart is I'm one of the few chiropractors that's a coach that's still in practice and is in the weeds and knows what's going on with the day-to-day challenges that we experience every day. And I think that one of the biggest things that I've seen people make mistakes with is that they actually don't work with medical doctors or OBGYNs. That's where all the sick people are. And there's such a huge opportunity for chiropractors to work with medical doctors and OBGYNs and other healthcare providers to be able to get those referral sources in. But I think the chiropractors, they're just trying to do it all themselves, And if they work these collaborative relationships, it makes such a big difference.
Tell me how you first got somebody in the OBGYN world to work with you.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. So I was just out of school And I said to myself, I really love working with pregnant moms, and I wish I could work with OBGYNs, but it just seemed like this huge, daunting, like very difficult thing. And it actually started out with a patient. A patient that I had was a nurse practitioner at a large OB practice. And she is like a holistic kind of a nurse practitioner, but she worked with this medical OBGYN. And she was like, you need to know about Dr. Tahir. That's who you need to start sending pregnant moms to, because I educated that patient. And she went and educated that OB. And then she was able to get me into working with the OB and explaining chiropractic, and got my foot in the door. And then when I started working with her 15 years ago, I had been continually working with different OBs and MDs, and then I finally built a whole system around it.
Did you build a system to getting in to see OBGYNs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Getting in front of them, they're key decision makers. So getting in front of them and getting a luncheon scheduled, getting in front of them and helping them understand what it is we do with chiropractic care in the first place, And then I've expanded it out to medical doctors too.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing, is they just didn't know what chiropractors did.
They didn't know, and there's no options. And they can't give medicine, or they can't give injections to these pregnant moms. So what's the option? They're like, well, you just have to live with that. After 9 months, it'll be over.
I've done 5 podcast people here this morning, and they're all talking about your limiting beliefs. And I think that's what you have down here. How does that play into ourselves? How do we limit ourselves?
Yeah. So, our limiting beliefs, we started off talking about my TED Talk, and I'm very grateful because the TED Talks, it's become very, very popular. And it is on how our limiting beliefs hold us back. So these limiting beliefs are handed down to us from generations and generations, and back in the day, it was really rough to be able to survive in this world. Even if you think about our grandparents' generation, they went through war, went through famine, went through destruction, went through so many different things. And that's not to say that that's not happening this day and age, but they handed down some of these like limiting and negative thought patterns that we actually operate our life from. And we don't know that they exist until we have someone go in and say, hey, this is actually a limiting belief that you've been handed down from generation to generation. So it could be around money, it could be around success, it could be around wealth, it could be around relationships, a marriage, all sorts of different things. And one of the things we do with our coaching clients is we work with those limiting beliefs and a very specific technique called Psych K that helps to eliminate those limiting beliefs to stop the barriers for their success.
Tell me about that again. What was the word psych?
Psych K. Yeah.
Psych K.
Yeah. So actually uses muscle testing to be able to identify the limiting beliefs within the subconscious mind. Yes, it's very cool. So let's just say you came to me and you have everything, Arlen. So I don't know, you probably don't need anything else.
Well, yes, I do. By the way, my wife said, I'm really getting much better at podcasting. And I said, why? And she says, you're shutting up. And I'm learning.
Yeah.
The person that comes in here, I have the benefit of listening to them. And I didn't know what this was.
Yes, Psych K. So basically, if you had a goal that you wanted, let's just make it up. Let's just say it was a health goal.
Yes.
Okay. You have a certain goal in your mind that you want to achieve. I will test you using this technique to see if you actually even believe you can do it. Now, consciously, you may say, yes, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I want to do it. But subconsciously, that's what keeps holding us back, because it may not be normal for us. That goal may not be something that we're familiar with, because we're operating with this old operating system from our grandparents and parents and society and teachers and preachers. And that's who's told us our belief system. And so my job is to work with you and be able to find out where the weakness is, because that limitation is actually weakening you. That's why the muscle testing helps us gauge that. And then once we find that weakness, then I can actually use, it's really cool because it's almost like it's kind of almost like how chiropractic works. We use the body to get to the mind, and we use different postures to get the person into a whole brain state, and then get their subconscious in line with their conscious goals. So let's just say someone had a practice goal of, I want to make $1 million. But if in your mind you don't actually believe that, subconscious mind, you're never going to get there.
Exactly.
It's always going to be the same thing over and over again, and it's just going to be daunting and hard.
Well, I have interviewed practice management people, and the successful practice management people, all of a sudden it hit me, they're only working with the 20% successful practitioners.
Exactly.
There's 80% out there that they don't work with because they won't change.
Exactly.
And that's a pretty big thing when you find out that there's people that don't want to change.
Yep. Exactly.
Can you change there?
They have to be coachable. So, for me, we don't actually take on everybody that we coach. I have a conversation first to see, are they coachable? Like, are they going to be open and receptive to want to change? But sometimes there's things that they've learned that prevent them from changing. So that's where our goal is to start breaking that down to help them achieve their goals.
That can be familial. It can be, from when they're babies.
Oh, yeah.
To break that cycle.
Yeah.
So
if you tell, your child, you're not going to amount to anything, you're not going to be successful, you can't do this.
Yeah.
That's going to stick in their mind as they grow into an adult. It's all how we speak to our children and our loved ones.
I came from a big farm family, and the old Germans always, bought a farm for every kid. And so when I told my grandfather I wanted to be a chiropractor, it was destroying to him because he said, no, we already have your life plan for you. And I said, well, not what I'm going to do. But I had an uncle that was in our family a weirdo because he was an interior decorator. And can you imagine this? All farmers, and here's an interior decorator. But he took me under his wing and said, it's okay that you're not a farmer. And he gave me the support that I needed to go through university and then chiropractic college. So,
that just gives me chills. What a great story.
Yeah, sometimes a person in your life that can change it.
That can change it.
Yes.
Yes, but he was out of that familial pattern.
Yes.
And then look at what you've created because of your uncle. Look at what you've created for our profession and for society.
But he gave me that vision to do it. And so.
Oh, I love that story. I didn't know that.
What technique do you use in your practice?
So we actually do use some activator as well. So with the pregnant moms, and then also I'm moving into postpartum. We use the activator sometimes for areas that we are not able to access, maybe sensitive, uncomfortable. So we do use the activator quite a bit as well. We also, because it is so precise, and it's very specific, and you can really get to specific areas with it,
And safe.
And very safe, exactly. So we use that, of course, with our geriatric population, some of our children, especially moms. Sometimes they're nervous about their kids getting adjusted. So it's a really great tool that I'm so grateful that you created. Then we also use pelvic blocking. And actually in my talk later this weekend, I'm going to be going over some simple pelvic blocking techniques that people can use. It doesn't have to be a whole big thing, but it's simple, easy, things that they can use to get some powerful results. And then we, of course, use drop, diversified. We have Webster technique, and some little bit of soft tissue.
Sure. There's a lot of different colleges now that are having specific pediatric courses.
Yes.
And so are you seeing people come out with that? Is that good?
I am seeing that. I primarily do work with the ICPA. All of my work when I teach how to work with the OBGYNs and the midwives and pregnancy has all been gone through the ICPA because I do see that as the main certifying body.
Yes.
So, but there are other good courses too, but I think that at the bare minimum, people definitely should get, through the ICPA, the Webster certification. I love that.
How do people get a hold of you if they want to, learn how to take care of the pediatric world?
Yeah. So whether they want to learn more about the pediatrics or the pregnancy, or they want to learn more about the coaching, I am on Instagram. So it's just Dr. Irum Tahir. And then I'm on Facebook too, Dr. Irum Tahir. So I have one of those names that's can't really be forgotten, I guess. And then we have a website too, of course.
Which spell the name for them because somebody might not know how.
Sure, yes. So my first name is Irum.
Irum.
Yep. And then Tahir.
Tahir.
Yes. And then we have a website too, which is www.ignite-spark.com. And we called our consulting company, it's part of we have a parent company called High Point Consulting, but Ignite the Spark is really about sparking something in our providers, in our doctors. So many of us, I'm sure you've seen this, kind chiropractors, we do get burnt out. We get kind of like into this thing like over and over again, same problems. So Ignite the Spark is really moving people out of what they're used to into doing something different and creating a spark within.
Well, I can't thank you enough. We're at Parker here, and we've had several people today that we're interviewing, and we can get them all at one place. That's fabulous. And so thank you for taking time, because I know you're busy, for just coming in and being on the Activate Your Practice podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.